Hello, everyone. You're listening to the Small Business Show. I'm your host, Swire Ho, the promo guy. Today, we have our guest is Angel Ribo. He's also known as the CEO of Confidence. He's a business influencer, LinkedIn strategist, international TV host, public speaker, CEO consultant, board member, and philanthropist. How are you doing, Angel?
Thank you. Thank you very much for the introduction. I'm doing great. Thank you for having me today. And obviously, everybody who's watching us, thank you.
You have a very impressive resume. Would you please tell us a little bit more about what you do and what are some of the conversations that you have had with the CEO that you're consulting right now?
Yeah, absolutely. So, well, basically, I'm originally from close to Barcelona in Spain. I've lived in Texas now for 10 years. Before that, I lived in Latin America. And before that, obviously, in Europe, in different places in Europe. And basically, what I do, it's two very different things. One with my consulting business, my CEO business. I help both corporate CEOs and established entrepreneurs to bridge the gap globally for expansion and exposure as a way to accelerate the growth of their businesses. And I'm able to do that because throughout my corporate career, I left corporate America in 2016. I had helped more than 1,500 CEOs to grow their businesses in more than 33 countries. I was blessed with having my, parents put me through, several language education when I was a kid. So I have been able to use extensively my knowledge of foreign languages in order to be able to create those trustworthy relationships with so many executives all over the world. And at the same time, by living so many years in Latin America, I was able to see a lot of poverty. So in 2017, I was able to launch, along with a couple of friends, to launch the Wisdom for Kids Foundation. And what we do is we basically help underprivileged kids in Latin America become entrepreneurs using the local resources. And we have helped more than 1,000 kids so far. So that's in a nutshell who Angel Ribo and the CEO Confident is, Swire.
Nice. Actually wanted to jump on to our first question. And I know that you're kind enough to post it on your LinkedIn and then your follower. I think the most people respond to is, pivoting in times of crisis. I read some of the comment that were on your share post, and some people don't think they're in crisis. Some people think that they are in a crisis and they have to pivot. Can you talk a little bit more about that? Like how? And my question to you will be, what would consider a crisis in a business, and how do you suggest we pivot from it?
Well, that's a great question. Let's say that the reason why I speak about crisis is because I have had to face myself either alone or, with the different corporations I was working with, times of crisis. I mean, crisis is your business can be in crisis, but the market maybe not necessarily is in crisis, right? So let's make those two differences. So I think that we tend to take action when we see that the market is in crisis because lots of things start to change. We don't really know how to cope with it. There's uncertainty, and uncertainty, both in business and personally, generates a lot of, I would say, fear, bluntly, said fear. And that's basically what makes us start thinking, okay, so should we do something about that fear? Should we do something about that uncertainty? Crisis, again, typically, when I see that my clients are massively changing, it's when I interpret that that's a crisis. For the last 18 months, now it's June 2021. For the last 18 months, lots of things have happened in the market, but not every single industry has been in crisis. There's been a lot of industries that actually have really had a great time, the best time ever, and not necessarily only the healthcare sector or the health sector or the medical devices industry. But many different sectors have really had a great time, probably the best time ever in history, probably. So I would say that as an entrepreneur or even as a CEO of a corporation, I interpret the crisis when lots of different variables around me in my environment are starting to change, and I see that I have to do something. And in that environment, I remember year 2008, 2009, probably we all remember also what was going on in the world, right? Or in 2001 when, the Twin Towers happened. So you see that a lot of things are happening in the market, and you see that you have to change. And I have to say that actually it was a real blessing that we had this happen, just because we are obliged to start thinking what to change in order to serve our clients better. I personally think that regardless of how our industry was touched, I think that always keeping in mind the idea that we always have to change, that we always have the opportunity and the space to offer an additional product or service to our clients, it's actually a recipe for continuous success on our business, Swire.
Yeah, I would say so. Especially, agree with your comment that some company actually are doing the best of the year, and especially I know a consultants that normally he would travel around the country to do seminar to coach client. Now with Zoom, with everyone getting very comfortable in front of their camera, right in front of their computer station, she's actually hosting workshop virtually, and he doesn't have to travel. Right, he can have the content available for more people. I'm sure that you notice that too. Maybe you like flying, you like traveling, but then right now with consulting, you can actually be anywhere in the world and able to connect with basically anyone globally.
I couldn't agree more. I mean, I agree with you 100%. I love traveling. I love being on the road. I love, taking planes. I was one of those crazy guys, like taking 200 plus flights a year, right? And staying hundreds of nights in hotels. I'm that guy. I mean, I love that. But also at the same time, there's people that right now are in fear because they don't know how to actually develop business online. So there's the two sides, right? The people that right now they have perfectly adapted to the new situation, and I'm actually like saving, right, on their travel expenses. But there's other people that don't feel comfortable. So again, that's an opportunity for another type of coaches and maybe trainers and even consultants on how to make the most of your presence online in order to keep on generating business for your company. So as you see, it's always like, is your bottle half empty or half full, right? And I always believe that there's always an opportunity. And as far as you're able to read your market properly, I think that you will always be able to see what's the value that you can keep on adding to your clients. And it's the same with you. I mean, you are the promo guy, right? So I'm sure that through what was happening and going on in the world, you identify several things, several products, several services that you could yourself provide on top of what was already being provided by your company, correct? But you have to be listening. The thing is, you have to be listening. I mean, we might be stuck for a while, but then listen and take action.
I think one of the way, at least, if you putting me on the table is, I like to chat with my client. So finding out what happened in their industry. So I think that's one way to learn about, news from people that are actually purchasing from me. Another way that I like to look at when learning the trend is what my supplier, my vendors are sending me. So give you an example. I think it was in April, in March, we start noticing that all of our clothing supplier are switching gears to make face masks. And I receive like 20, 30 emails every day with different supplier for doing the face mask. So we actually try and jump on the trend. And April is actually the best months that we have because we're able to see that trend, knowing that it's going to come in. So I would suggest, all the listener, listening, if you're, like Angel said, if you're stuck, talk to people in your industry, maybe talk to your supplier or talk to even competitor if they would take your call and just ask them, what are you guys doing? And see if there's any trends. Maybe you need to not change your business entirely, maybe just to shift a little bit to the way that you conduct your business.
Exactly. It's funny how just a few minutes ago, I was actually coaching one of my clients in Europe. He's an entrepreneur, very smart, amazing individual, but still, the conversation went something like, I have so many different options. I know I could do this, I could do that, but in reality, you can actually, start like analyzing which of the opportunities in the market is better and what's going to be the best one for you to provide to people and what's the one that you're going to like the most to provide. But at the end of the day, the most important thing is that you take action. You see things going on around you, you take action, and then you see what happens. And it's easier and easier and easier actually to get to grasp the intelligence from the market. You said it very well. You're only one call away from talking to all the stakeholders of your business, all of them. You mentioned different categories there, and just ask them, what do you think? What are you seeing? What are you seeing? What do you think is going to happen, 1 month down the road, or maybe 3 months or 6 months or 1 year, according to the, general, current state of affairs right now in the world? It's much easier than what we think, but we tend to be stuck. And again, that's a mindset thing, right? So I don't know what to do. What should I do? Talk to the people that you have already built relationships with, which is a ton of people. And you're not going to sell to them. I mean, you don't have to have a hard sell conversation. Just, hey, a chat. You said it, Swire. Just have a chat. How are things going? How are you? What are your clients, sharing with you? What do you see happening in the future? Just have that conversation, and that way you will gather the market intelligence that you need to keep moving forward with maybe a new product or a new service.
Yeah, another way that I do as an entrepreneur and especially as a salesperson is I normally will read magazines or blog that my ideal client will likely to be reading. So I'll notice not only to the articles, and I'll also watch out for what kind of ads people are putting. So I know that there are probably those type of company or the industry or service industries that are doing well. So I could see, as an entrepreneur, as a business person, can I shift to those category? Because obviously they're putting ads in there right now, or they're changing to those type of content right now. Is their industry shifting to those areas? So these are some of the questions that I ask myself all the time.
Yeah, and you touched upon something really important, which is what is your audience, right? What is your audience? For instance, for myself, as I serve corporate America and executives in corporate America, very often I go to those events in which the large consulting groups, the large consulting companies in the world, they present the surveys. I was just in the presentation of a survey from PricewaterhouseCoopers the other day, and it was about the global CEO survey. That's the community I serve. So around me, there were a lot of executives. I'm continuously being invited to those forums, right, to those networking events, in which I gather additional intelligence, which allows me to see exactly what's going on in the world. And with that information, I can not only feed my own business and maybe even think, am I going to be pivoting my services to serve that need, that this specific global survey, the global CEO survey in particular, all those findings of that survey, am I going to pivot my own business, or am I going to help my clients to pivot towards that? So again, it's a matter of knowing what your audience is and being always listening. Something that we don't do good very often is that we don't listen. We really don't listen. We are so stuck, and not only of taking action, as we said before, but stuck in our own lane. Isn't it crazy? I mean, we tend to think that we have to keep on doing, but hey, if things are changing, how do I have to change? Maybe it's not only the content, maybe it's not only the service, it's also the delivery of the service. And we spoke about online versus, face-to-face or in person. So there's a lot of many different things. And that's why my favorite business mantra, as you probably know, is taking perfect action now. Taking perfect action now, because I think it really defines a lot what you can do. But more importantly, as soon as you go down that route, you will start seeing what works and what doesn't. And people get stuck and they don't want to walk it, really. They want to stay at their comfort zone until things maybe get so wrong or so bad that it's too late. So, take your perfect action and listen to what happens around you whenever you take that decision of taking a new route.
I love that. And I actually, I think reading your bio and then, knowing that you spoke 5 languages, and I know how you feel about this topic, expanding globally. So, can you talk to us a little bit more about that? I think, is
Absolutely.
it only for large business, or like at what point would you recommend a client or a CEO to think globally?
That's a great question, because obviously I was working in corporate America and I was working for, let's say large corporations, and, I was always working internationally. So I was instrumental to the expansion of those corporations. But at the same time, I was always building or helping entrepreneurs, because we had what is called in the sales environment like indirect sales models, which means that I was creating distribution channels. So I was consistently identifying small companies, small businesses, or mid-sized businesses that could be our distributors in those particular areas. So what I'm trying to say is I would personally be involved in conversations, not only with my large corporation about how to expand internationally, but also with the small companies on how to expand internationally, because we would offer those small distributors to actually expand internationally. Very often, if you're an entrepreneur and you already have that, that your business in a place where it's thriving, it's generating revenue, you're living comfortably. I am 100% sure that someone at some point has come to you and said, you should take your business globally. You should take your business globally. That happens, Swire. That happens. And when I have this conversation, they say, yes, absolutely. There was this friend of mine, there was this support, there was this company that they told me that I should take my business globally. So when are you ready to take your business globally? Well, the most important thing is, do you have the financial, cushion to do this? Because it's not only like funding your clients, but it's also like there's tax issues or tax aspects of it that we talk about, HR, we're talking about legalities, and all those things are part of your expanding internationally. There are very soft ways to expand internationally that don't require, let's say, a lot of investment from your side. It can be done, depending on the services or products that you are actually offering to your clients. Your international expansion can be like very, very, very economical or financially viable. But that's the first thing that we have to do. We have to say, okay, so this is what you have. I would like to take my business global. Let's pick a specific area, and we can help that company to do that, to decide what's the area. Do your products or services have to be customized? How? Do they have to be translated? Do we have to find local partners, local distributors or resellers to do that? There's a lot of many different routes that we can go, and I wouldn't say there's not only like a black or white answer. It always depends on the services, on the industry, on the stage of the business, and on the financials of that company at that point in time. But I have to tell you something. There's always going to be clients for you. There's always to be clients. Very often, some companies are saying, oh, but who's going to buy this? I do this here. I'm very successful, but it's so local. Why don't you ask yourself a different question? What do I have to do to keep on making money out of my current intellectual property, but in other areas? So the question is completely different. You already have an IP, right? It can be your products, it can be your distribution, it can be your services. How do I make additional money instead of only focusing on my backyard? We become very complacent. Don't you become complacent, Swire? Of course we do. With our existing clients, we keep on offering them the same kind of service or products. But at the end of the day, we know that there might be other opportunities in other areas. And every single geography is different. You mentioned before, in April last year, I started to have these, 20, 25, offers on my email. What about maybe using those same offers, but to other geographies? Maybe you could have expanded, you could have exported those products to other areas, and you could have made probably, knowing your intelligence about this market, knowing this, being savvy about this product and about this market, maybe you can go to a new market and start making offers to different people that were going to buy them. So it's not as complicated as it sounds, as far as you have a process in place and you have a plan in place. And that's what we do.
Yeah, I like the example, especially I think, especially a small business, they will think that, we're a local business, what we have is very niche, and, probably no one outside of our area would like that. I like to put a good example, right? Think about let's say if you're in the music industry in Korea, for example, there's a boy group called BTS. So they could have stayed in Korea and then, be popular. But what they're doing, they actually expand globally. They're everywhere right now. They're, one of the most popular band here in globally. So they don't even speak English. Only one member speaks English. So like the language barrier, it's gone. So everywhere you go, every endorsement that they do right now, think about how much more commerce that they do. It goes beyond the music. So the team that is behind the group is doing a phenomenal job. They can go anywhere right now, and then they will just pack the stadium. As many seats you have available, it's packed. So think about an example like that. They could stay in Korea, but then they actually look at what's around the world, and then they expand. And this is a perfect example, in a big way, that how you might think you're weird, you're small, but then maybe somewhere in the world there are people who are drawn to your weirdness, or just that you're unique of your product.
Exactly, because that's when when I talk to entrepreneurs that are just starting, and I do that very often with the startups, something that happens very often is they get like, again, entrenched in this like competitive analysis. And I dare you, Swire, like 10 people like you, like even offering the same niche product, they can be successful in the market. And you still are going to make a lot of money. And the rest can also make a lot of money. What I'm trying to say is all of us, just being who we are going to attract a different audience. And we could even be doing the same thing. We're going to attract a different audience. People will resonate with Swire and maybe they don't resonate with me just because of who I am or who he is. And that's always going to be the case. Always going to be the case. There's always going to be a market for you. Always. And if you go to the market and you try hard enough, you will see if maybe you have to tweak your strategy a little bit. But I see that so often that people just stop their business or just change, like deliberately the line of products or services they're providing before trying enough, before even listening to the market. I remember when I was, training, I had a large sales force myself. I was training a lot of salespeople. And I remember in the initial conversations, people, new salespeople were always be afraid of leads, right? What if I run out of leads? What if I run out of leads? And I would always tell, well, if you run out of leads or your manager is not able to give you more leads, guess what? I'm going to give you another 1,000 leads, or I will tell you like 10 more sources of leads for your business, right? So again, are you asking yourself the right questions? Or are you coming from a mind of a scarcity or of abundance? There's always new ways to find leads. There's always new sources, and right now, guess what? You mentioned it before, online. Before, if I wanted to go to an executive event of a particular, profile of people, very often there were some, invites, and it was not that easy to get into those events. Guess what? Most of them right now are for free. Everybody can access them, or it's much easier to access them, and you get to have the same knowledge. You don't have the same kind of relationship with everybody, I agree, but you still have access to these networking events. And there's many more. I mean, just go to LinkedIn, right? You mentioned LinkedIn before, where I spend a lot of my time, and my team does too. Go to LinkedIn. How many thousands and thousands of events from which you can learn so many things about your future or existing market? Oh my God, it's overwhelming. I mean, who doesn't really know about what their market is like right now is because they don't want to, because they are looking at the wrong place, right? It's amazing. What a blessing. I mean, obviously, with all due respect, to everybody, I always see the world in terms of opportunities and blessings, and we definitely are surrounded by blessings right now, Swire.
Yeah, and you touched on that, and I do wanted to get your take on that. About conscious leadership in time of adversity. So, tell us more about that. And I think you're right, and you could be I would use the word weird because I'm weird in a lot of ways, but some people do connect with me better than other salespeople. So, and I'm fine with that. Maybe I don't do a certain thing, and I don't be and look in a certain way that other people do, but then comfortable with what I am, the way I talk, the way that I write, the way I present. And there are customer that like that. There are customers who don't like that. And took me a lot of time, but then I'm getting more accepted, and there are people that are your customer. There are people who might not be your customer forever.
Very often people ask me, hey, what do you think, how to approach, or what are those three things or four things or, X number of things that we should know about approaching CEOs? And one of the first things always on my list, you know what it is? They are always looking for unconventional knowledge. Always. And they really value unconventional knowledge. And I think that's really important. You call it to be weird. Actually, if any of my three kids would be here, they would tell you how weird I am in many different areas of our lives, right? That's a different story. But what I'm trying to say is I've always been in my life looking for unconventional knowledge and doing unconventional stuff. And the same as you. Maybe I don't resonate, or everybody doesn't resonate with me, but I'm fine with it, because you know what? Looking for unconventional knowledge, I have been able to serve my clients better. And that's what I want to keep on doing. The other day, I was looking at one of those, actually that PricewaterhouseCoopers Global CEO Survey, right? Global CEO Survey. And I was reading about what's the number one concern about corporate CEOs today. So one of the most important concerns, you know what it is? How to help their teams upskill. And there was like 76% of, I think it was 76% of CEOs said that. So right now, CEOs are really, thinking about what are the skills I have to give my teams so they will be able to develop themselves and their careers and keep on providing value to the market. From our company, what are those skills that they should give them to be able to face uncertainty? Just knowing that piece of information, what is that telling you? What can you do? Let's say you are an entrepreneur and you're providing services to corporate America. You're a trainer or, an educator, or you are a consultant, or you are a coach. How many things can you do? And then knowing that this is a concern, I think this is a very nice trend, because you mentioned here you actually label here like conscious leadership, because I believe that really shows that right now conscious leaders leaders in the corporate world, they are more and more conscious about caring for their teams. I believe that in the future, you're going to be a conscious leader or you will not be a leader anymore. Because people have more and more and more and more choices. I am receiving every single day, I'm very active on LinkedIn, but I get so many emails from recruiters. There's a big, massive fight for talent right now. Big, massive fight for talent. And guess what? The disengagement of the workforce in the US is not improving. So what's going to happen? People that have been for a few months maybe testing the waters, and they're right now working at home, maybe some of them decide not to work for that corporation any longer. So the fight for talent is going to increase. That's why I'm saying I have no doubt that conscious leadership is something that every single CEO should know or should have in their agenda. They should be right now thinking about, how do I become a better leader? How do I become a conscious leader? How do I profoundly and wholeheartedly start caring about my team in a systematic way? So we change the organization, and we are really ready to fight, this war, this battle for talent in a much better position. We retain the existing talent, but we also keep on attracting the best talent. That's a very important thing. So everybody out there, just take this into consideration when you're starting to think about pivoting.
Yeah, I love that. And I think the last question that I will ask you, and you'll be the perfect person to ask, and how do we become a business influencer? And I wanted to narrow it down a little bit to talk about on LinkedIn, because as a business professional, we know that LinkedIn will be the platform that we should hang out most and spend most of our time on. We could learn about a prospect, a supplier, or an industry. And you have a lot of followers, and everything that you said and post, and people actually engage with that. How does one take to become at your level, at least half as good as what you do?
Well, thank you, obviously, for your comments. You are right, and that's a blessing that my let's say my career, but has put me through. Thank God. But I would say number one, being intentional. In 2016, when I left corporate America, I made it an intention. I wanted to become an influencer, a business influencer. And from a few hundred, connections, right now I have many more connections, but it's not about the number of connections. It's what you do with those connections. It's how warm those connections are. How do you nurture those connections? And if you, as you said very well, there's months, obviously I have an editorial calendar and I post on every single media outlet, but mostly on LinkedIn. And I'm very cautious about what I post. And I'm sure I know what people are going through. So every single day that I post something that it can be maybe something really like personal related, and not about me, but about them. What are they going through? Or what's going to happen this week that might be relevant for their lives. And I want to make a comment about this. And I want to comment about this particular, initiative or activity or date, which is important for them. So you have to understand that influence is a game. Influence is a game, okay? Influence is a game. So you have to play the game. And you have to play the game very humbly, okay? In order to start playing the game of influence, you actually have to, you have to give influence to people that have more influence than you. I'm going to repeat this. You have to give influence to the people that have more influence than you. And then they will return the favor to you. So are you doing that? Are you actually, commenting on the most or people that are more influential than you on the feed? I obviously use LinkedIn because it's a big, massive search tool where professionals go and meet for different reasons. Finding clients, finding jobs, it depends. But go there. Are you giving influence? Are you commenting? Are you liking? Are you sharing? So that's the number one step. Number two, the content that you share. Don't only share content about what your expertise, what you're a thought leader of. Also comment to things that relate to the personal lives of the people you're trying to serve. Number three, I'm not a hard selling person. Okay, so I will never call Swire and tell him, hey, I would like you to coach you, and you have no other place to go, and you have to hire me, and this is why, and this is how much it costs, and this is the scope, and then please send me your check. That's not me. I believe in creating long-lasting relationships on LinkedIn, through email, through all the social media outlets. And that's done over time. If you want to rush it, you're going to make mistakes. I'm fine with making mistakes, but the game of influence takes time. I really commend you to generate relationships and to make sure that you keep on creating those relationships. I mean, I'm blessed with having a team, but I would say that you genuinely engage with your connections on LinkedIn on a similar level than being on a networking event. Okay, so if you think, for instance, the other day one of my clients had a cybersecurity news that they wanted to share. So I reached out to all my chief technology officers and chief information officers of my network, because that makes sense. And there were actually 50 plus that said, oh, thank you for sharing, that was good. And again, that wasn't solicited, but I wasn't pitching them for anything. So I keep on building that relationship all the time. And finally, I'm always looking for unconventional knowledge, always. So if you provide real value through your content, both personally and professionally to your network, you will become that influencer that you always wanted to be, so that you grab attention and people will come to your content and comment on that content. I think that's a pretty safe route, Swire, to become a business influencer.
Yeah, I like that, because, we like to learn information about ourselves, right? So at the deep down, we're all selfish with our interests and our business, right? So if we can find a person or a company that always providing the information that we want to read, then we will follow that person or the company instead of someone who always trying to sell us. And we can tell right away. Consumers are smart. When they see an ad, they know an ad right away, and I skip, right? But then if you are looking for information and you trust that person, you develop the trust, then I would tune in every day. I'll learn from the person every day.
And one of the things that my audience tells me more often is your content is refreshing. Your content is refreshing. I go there and I know that I can have my mind somewhere else. I mean, it's a great way to tell you, I will consistently go to your feed and react and read what you're posting, even if it's not business related. Of course, I do business related posts because I want to still share some areas which I think are relevant for my audience. But still, just be a person, be yourself, be authentic. Don't pretend to be anybody else. Be yourself. Whatever feels right for you to post, just post it and forget about the consequences. No, honestly, just be yourself and go online. I mean, don't even believe what I'm telling you. Just go to the most visited posts on your feed on LinkedIn, and you will see what they're doing. The kind of content, the kind of media, you will see. Judge by yourself, Swire.
Yeah, I love that. Well, you got to obviously spend time onto it too. I would suggest, follow Angel, right? That's the number one thing to do. And then follow other people that you think are famous or influencer in the industry. Look at what they're doing. Is there something that you can do and develop your own twist, your own personality to put it on there. So, you could tell the same content in different ways, and maybe you develop your own voice that people will follow and listen to.
Absolutely, I agree. And again, it's a matter. This builds up. I mean, building relationships is building relationships. It takes time, and you have to be persistent, right? So, don't care as much about the number as for the quality of the relationships that you are developing. and interact with them. It's very, I mean, there's so much that you can know about every single person on LinkedIn. Just knowing most of the people don't post, don't create their own content. Most of the people just react to other content. Just by seeing what the others react onto, you will already have a lot of market intelligence for you to decide how to approach someone. There's even software, there's artificial intelligence software available right now that according to the words that you use on your LinkedIn profile, they are telling you how to actually write to that person to generate attention.
Wow.
Everything is available right now, everything. So if you don't do a better job, it's just because you didn't do your search. You didn't do your research, excuse me. So
yeah, and I think one trick that I learned, not trick, but one thing that I do, right, is I do put some of my interests and hobbies onto my LinkedIn bio. And I'm a certified kettlebell instructor. I actually put that because I'm proud on my LinkedIn profile. Every single time a client or business contact that I met on LinkedIn contact me, they ask me about that. They could have asked me a lot of other things that I put on there, but then they go there. So I think if you have a special achievement or if you have a special interest hobby, you can actually relate to those type of group of people better that are also business professionals themselves on LinkedIn.
Absolutely, yeah. It's much easier. Again, we're talking about about personal relationships, because at the end of the day, even if you are a B2B person, business to business person, still you will have to develop a relationship with someone that will open you the door to that particular company, right? So it's always person to person all the time, no matter what.
Okay, great. So Angel, I wanted to thank you for all the information. And if listener wanted to find out more about what you do, what would be the best way?
Absolutely. The easiest way is to actually send me an email. I'm going to spell my email very easy: Angel, ANGEL, at angelribo.com. Ribo is my last name, 4 letters, RIB as in boy, O.com. So it's angel at angelribo.com. That's the easiest way. Either my team or myself, we always answer all the emails. Second, go to LinkedIn. Angel Ribo, my brand is the CEO confidant. And either my team or myself, we are all day long on LinkedIn, interacting, answering emails. As you know, Swire knows this. And really, I like to share good content. I like to share good stories and to basically be myself and keep on building those relationships with the people around me. You will also find me on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, but definitely LinkedIn is my stronghold, if I could call it like that.
Thank you so much, Angel, for coming on today. Really enjoyed the conversation.
The pleasure has been mine. Thank you, Swire, for having me, and obviously thank you everybody who's been listening to us today.
Okay.